Alright, so it's going to be an ad hoc video. It's not the official, but we'll edit it and we'll make a proper one later. We haven't got the GoPro ready for us today. Alright, so let's start by looking at Windshear. Windshear is one of the things that's been a problem, because oftentimes, and it's a facility like this, when guys come here, we assume that they are proficient in Windshear and Windshear operations. And 99% of the times, they're not. They've got no idea what Windshear is about. They come from flying school, you say if you get too cold, I'm a bit of an ice bear. They come from school and they talk about thunderstorms and frontal systems and blah, blah, blah. But they don't tell them anything about Windshear really. They say, oh, this is Windshear, but you don't really get to know what Windshear is about until the day you end up in Windshear. And then you go, oh, fuck. That happened to me. I nearly got killed with Windshear once. So, looking at Windshear, start like it's Windshear. Windshear's definition, the Dallas incident, planes in which Windshear takes place. Then we've got momentum. I didn't pass school because I could write nicely. They just felt so sorry for me that they moved me on. Momentum, we've got positive and negative. Then we've got hints for Windshear. Then we've got 1, 2, 3 plan. Then we've got watch out for or look out for. And then we've got Windshear, avoid, recover. In between here, we've got the Windshear detection as well. Now, I won't wipe out anything, and when the board is full, and I'll tell you when I'm ready to wipe out, then you can snap a pic or so, and then I'll make notes, doesn't matter. Dennis, okay, in between here, I should have put your Windshear detection. Right, now we're specifically going to look at Windshear under 145, which is going to be similar to yours, except that Windshear under 145 has got Windshear guidance on the computer. It'll automatically go into the guidance mode. You're going to do it manually. So you're a lot more at risk because you've got a lot less tools that you can use. I don't know about the ATR, how the ATR works, never found an ATR in my life. This thing has got all the tools in it, almost all except for predictive Windshear. So the first thing is the definition of Windshear. It is a sudden change or abrupt in wind speed and or direction. It can be speed or direction, or it can be a combination of the two. Now, if we look at wind direction, it's simple. If we look at something like a temperature inversion, the wind above the inversion layer and the wind below the inversion layer are oftentimes two different directions. It might be the same direction or similar direction but different speeds. So you've got a 10 knot wind, I get a 50, you've got a 50 knot wind. Down here, you've got a 10 knot wind.
Can it also be, let's say, one updraft and one downdraft? So
yeah, we're going to get to that one. That's going to be in the planes of Windshear. The planes what Windshear can happen in. So in this case, if we are coming in and the temperature inversion, remember, it's got quite a small layer or a thin area over which the wind changes between the two because of the inversion layer. So let's say you're coming in here at 130 knots airspeed. The second you go through here, that's a 50 knot headwind that you've had. That 50 knot headwind then drops away, it makes 10 knots. So you've got a minus 40 on your rev speed. That will instantaneously drop you, depending on how thin that layer is, will drop you to like 90 knots. That's Windshear, it will fall out the sky. One of the problems with something like a temperature inversion is, when do you expect violent things to happen? Is when things are violent, like thunderstorms and stuff. But this is a temperature inversion. Everything is quiet and calm in a temperature inversion, but it can really bite you in the ass. You can also have wind changes. Remember, the tower does not give us wind 3,000 feet above ground. You only have the wind there we are. Now, I don't know about the ATR again. You can pick it up on the GPS, but you've got to physically go into programming there to pick up on the GPS what the wind's doing and then compare it to what you're getting, which is very difficult. On something like a 145, it automatically shows you the directions, and that's much easier. So got to watch out for that. So it's wind speed and or direction that can bite you with Windshear. Now there was a situation, I think it was a TriStar or a L1011, I can't remember the aeroplane. And it was there in Dallas a bunch of years ago, and the guys took off there. Unfortunately, at that stage, it was late 70s, early 80s. Unfortunately, those days they didn't know about Windshear. It was an unknown thing. There are a lot of low-level wind phenomena and a lot of things that happened wrong. Well, not things, a lot of incidents and accidents, low level, and it was all related to wind. So in Dallas, it happened the one time that I think it was an L1011 or a TriStar, sorry. Anyway, so the guys took off here, and there was a localized effect, a localized activity which they didn't know at that stage. Nowadays, we know it as a microburst. They didn't know that it was. They took off over here, climbing out, I think it was 196 knots, they're climbing out there. Now, if you look at the microburst, it's got quite a strong outflow. This outflow was 80 knots, which is hectic. So these guys got themselves stuck here. The first thing is they hit the first part of it, which had a big headwind. That headwind ate the momentum of the aeroplane. Now, we'll get the momentum just now, because the momentum actually plays a very, very important. If it wasn't for momentum, we would not experience Windshear. So they hit the headwind over here, the headwind slowed them down, they reduced the momentum that they've got. Then they went through sort of the side of this thing, and when they went out the back side, this 80 knot tailwind hit them, so they ended up with, I think it's 116 knots below stall speed. Stalled, went to the left, crashed into the fuel bowsers, all got killed. So FAA, EASA, ANAC, all these guys said, listen, this low level Windshear things that's taking place is a big problem for us. We need to solve this. So they did a lot of investigation, and eventually they ended up putting dynes and anemometers all around these airfields where they usually get this kind of phenomenon. Then they connected these to a central computer system. The central computer system was then programmed to look for certain wind changes, wind speed changes, direction changes, and when it passes a threshold, the computer would then say, wait a minute, there's problems at the airfield, and then the ATC could then send a warning out to the crew. Nowadays, things are so advanced, there's some predictive Windshear where they can tell you where the Windshear is expected to come from. So things have changed quite a lot. Now, with all that said and done, that was the Dallas incident, which was the catalyst for the Windshear movement, if you could call it like that. Now, the problem with Windshear is we cannot quantify Windshear. You don't get a Blue Bravo 3 Delta Windshear. It's just Windshear. You get into it, it's an unknown quantity. You might get into it lightly, you might get into it heavy, it might be light going heavy, going light, it might stay heavy, it might stay light. We don't know, we've got no idea. So we actually don't want to go in there. And if we do have to go in there, we need a bit of planning. So we need to prepare ourselves. Now, the planes of Windshear that can take place in is the vertical plane, which is up and down drafts. The lateral plane, which is crosswinds, so left and right. But the worst one is the fore-aft axis, which is headwind, tailwind. That's the worst one, because the headwind, tailwind situation,
Which is your airspeed.
It screws with the airspeed. If you've got crosswinds, it doesn't screw with the airspeed that much. The problem is, it's all about the airflow over the wings. And if there's not enough airflow over the wings, you've got a problem. If you're flying something with a swept wing, like a swept wing jet, it's a bit of a different story. It will influence the airplane a little bit. But the worst is fore-aft wind changes, because that's where the wind is over the wing or not over the wing. That's where we get to momentum. Momentum is the resistance to change of an object with mass. Now, if we could change, if the momentum did not exist, if we could change our speed at the same rate at which the airspeed changes, there would be no Windshear. Because as the wind would change, we would change. But due to momentum, we have Windshear. So, in that, there's big debate about positive and negative Windshear. But it doesn't matter what the debate is about, it's about how it works. Now, if you have any wind or wind phenomena that makes the apparent performance of the aeroplane to increase, like a tailwind or wind from below, pushing us up or pushing us faster forward, that's called positive Windshear. So it's an increasing Windshear. So what that does is, if I was going to land over there where the wall intersects the ground, and I've got positive Windshear, it's going to boost me to land over there. I don't want to land there, I want to land here. So what I'm going to do, put the nose down, close the thrust. I'm going to refer to thrust through this exercise. Conversely, any wind phenomena that makes the apparent performance of the airplane to decrease is called negative wind shear. So, while I'm flying into a headwind that's increasing, it's going to push me down lower. So I'm not going to land there where I'm planning. I'm going to land over here. So what do? Raise it as an axial thrust. This is a much better position to be in. In any case, it's a headwind. This is a much better position to be in this one. Because this one, low nose, and we've got low thrust setting or low power setting. For certification processes, second performance airplanes, it takes 8 seconds from idle to max thrust. 8 seconds sounds like a long time, but when you're falling out the sky, 8 seconds is not a long time. Ask me, I know. Was going into a place called Tepuy 2 years ago. We scud round it out over the sea and back in again. Typically legal contract operation. Came in over the sea and we were 1,000 feet above ground and we were on final approach and we were fighting this thing. And it was a massive storm. And it's about 2.5 hours flight north of Peira. And on final approach, the next moment it was like God brought the earth to us. It just came up like this. We saw it, we threw in all the thrust, didn't make a difference. The earth just kept on coming. We thought we were going to hit the water. We were planning to hit the water and hopefully bounce far enough, if we could bounce, to end up on the beach to hitch the airplane. That's how bad it was. I grabbed myself. My co-pilot as well. And the guys in the back, they started drinking and praying. They were miners from South Africa going up there. Anyway, so doesn't matter which way around we see this. This is negative, this is positive, don't care. Point is, this will cause us to be in a worse situation because of tailwind and updraft and low power setting, low nose. This will be better for us because it's a headwind, downdraft, high power setting, high nose. So you're in a better position to get out of it at this stage than you are at this stage.
Just a quick question, how large can that wind shear area actually be?
Massive. Massive. The thing with wind shear is, if you are high up in altitude, it usually is vertical winds. If you've got if we're talking specifically about rain effects and stuff like that, you can get clear turbulence, which is just about wind shear, because the wind changes in such a way that either the aircraft's wing, due to increase in forward or increase in headwind, boosts and goes up, or it gets a tailwind that falls down. You heard people talk about pockets. It's not a pocket, it's an area where the headwind is reduced or the tailwind is increased. That's what a pocket is, because all you do is you lose lift. Or you can get it up and down draft as well. Now, we don't necessarily know unless you're flying and you're watching your predictive speed. And this thing has got a predictive speed measurement device. So it will tell you where you're going to be in the next couple of seconds with your speed. If you watch that, you will see it going up and down. And that'll then indicate to us headwind, tailwind, as opposed to maybe an updraft, downdraft, which you'll see on the vertical speed. So if you're flying high and we're flying in an area where these things happen, with clear turbulence, then we watch and you will see it. Because what is clear turbulence? It's wind that changes direction the whole time. It can be up, down, crosswinds, can be anything. And all that influences it because it influences the amount of airflow that goes over the wings, which influences the flying ability of the airplane. Right. So your problem with wind shear is if it's up and high altitude, you've got altitude to play with. If you're by the ground, the wind goes down, it has to go sideways. It doesn't go down, it all goes in one direction. It falls down due to the weight of the air and it spreads out in all directions. If you are somewhere inside there, your only way out is experiencing a tailwind because the wind is going out from you. Now, I don't know exactly how that, on that day, what took place, but we got into a tailwind situation. Fortunately, the tailwind stopped before it dropped all the speed of our wings. Thank goodness. So, if you say momentum, if I'm flying at 100 knots, and there's a wall of air here that flows at 100 knots in my direction, this is wind still. I fly like this and I go into that wall of air. My instantaneous indication of speed will be 200 knots because I'm flying at 100 and this wind's blowing 100. So I go into that. So my first indication will be 200 knots. My thrust vector still is the same, but my drag has now doubled because I've got 200 knots forward speed as opposed to 100 that I'm set up for. If I could increase my thrust that it can make 200 knots, then I would be in equilibrium and I will still be flying at 100 knots, which is not the case. So we hit this wall of air. The airplane doesn't go and stops in the wall of air. It goes into it, and over a period of time, it'll get back to where the drag is equal to the thrust if it's back in equilibrium. It takes time for that to happen. That is the momentum thing. Now, if I am flying in this wind that's blowing at 100 knots, and I'm standing still in relation to the air, my plane does not have momentum. If I leave the wind, I fall out the sky. Yes. If I have a tailwind, let's say, of 100 knots. So now I'm flying 100 knots, the wind is blowing 100 knots. So I'm flying at 200 knots in relation to the earth, but I'm still flying 100 knots in relation to the air mass. If I now take 100 knots away, I've got momentum. It will still travel for a bit and then it will regain and continue flying.
Yes.
Okay, converse. Right. Now, you want to snap a pic or can I take it off?
I can take it over. I think
Sure. Okay. Now, we're going to do the mental preparation briefing after this one. I want to do this one first because I'm going to record this and give it to Theodora so she can have a look at it at home. Because the mental preparation one is vitally, critically important, and we're going to do this afterwards. Okay. Now, hints. Oftentimes, we can know that we could expect weather or expect wind shear in advance, days in advance. Why do I say that? Because when you get the weather reports, they say next week thunderstorms expected Wednesday, you can expect wind shear. It's one of the first places you get wind shear. So what do the guys do? Oh, okay, we're expecting thunderstorms next week. Okay, so it's the Bulls and the Sharks playing today. What time do they play? Instead of going, okay, we're expecting wind shear next week because there's a thunderstorm. Oftentimes, and this will tie in with the mindset briefing, oftentimes, more often than not, when we pull the key out of the ignition of the aeroplane, we think flying's over. Flying's not over. That's only half the job. The rest of the job is going home and getting mentally prepared for what can happen to me tomorrow. Because we don't know what might happen. If we're not mentally ready for it, we might get caught out. Yeah, that's the next briefing. We'll do it just now when Theodora comes. Alright. Hints. Okay, with that. Okay, the hints for wind shear. Hints for wind shear is going to be like this. So anything that could give you a possible idea that you might experience wind shear. Now you can have a days ahead of time. If you're expecting high winds, you can have a days ahead of time. So if we're looking at the hints, point number 1 hint is thunderstorms. Point number 2 is gusty conditions. Now there are runways where you can expect gusty conditions in any way, where it's normal for us to get gusty conditions. One of them is the Comoros Islands, Moroni specifically. I had a very bad wind shear incident there, very, very bad. Not as bad as the one I had at Tapuiti, but quite bad. So just to the west, it's an island. The wind almost always comes from west, and just to the west of the airfield, there's a sheer rock face goes down to the sea. So as the wind's coming in from the west, it goes over that and it tumbles. A place like this will have gusty conditions in any way. It will mask the symptoms and the signs for wind shear. So you must be extra vigilant in places like this. Okay. But if you're flying in Joburg, it's not usually a place where wind tumbles around. It's usually a place where the wind is just flying normally. So if you do get things with wind shear there, then you know, okay, this is wind shear. So the signs are it's a lot more easy to recognize. You get something like a funnel effect. Now, that's not wind shear, hard wind shear. But here to the north, we've got a dam called Hartbeespoort Dam. And there's 2 mountains, the northern reach, 2 parts of the northern reach. There's no viewing from the side. There's a bridge there, and the bikes and cars going over the bridge. And what oftentimes happens is wind comes from the north during certain times of the year. Now, these 2 mountains, if I look at it from the top now, as the wind is coming from the north, because it goes through this port, it's a wind venturi. So the airspeed will increase as it's going through there. So the weekend warriors, when they're flying with their RV7s going through here, this doesn't bother them so much because it's a headwind and it's increasing headwind. Now, when they come back after they've done what they want to do, fly with their friends or whatever, when they come back and they pass through here, because this wind increases quite a lot over a very short period of time, they experience wind shear. There's been a number of incidents and accidents with microlights, paragliders, and things like that, things like this. They don't think about it. The wind's blowing. Funnel effect could cause it to us.
It's just low level overall, over mountainous areas.
Yeah, it's a bad idea, especially with aircraft and things. It's not good to handle it. Hang gliders, paragliders, things like collapse canopies, not a good idea. Rotor cloud, this primary example, rotor cloud, when the guys come this side, the leeward side, the wind hits them and it falls up the canopy. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of these things. Can I wipe this? There's a whole bunch of these things, but we're going to focus on the main ones. Now, you get something called local effect, which is similar to funnel effect. Now, when you're at Lanseria, back in the day, we used to get quite strong winds in August. You'll only know that we get winds in August if you know South Africa, if you know the Joburg area. Your weather predictions might tell you that, and the weather reports will tell you that, but we know already, we've operated here for a long time. So we know that we get these winds. Now then what happens, runway 07 there at Lanseria, you've got these buildings, and the wind comes, and the wind passes through the sides of the buildings, and it gets blocked over the buildings, causing wind shear. But we know about it because we know the weather's going to do that. Okay, that's local effect. Then we get the three family members. Microburst. Definition of microburst: the diameter is less than 5 nautical miles. Duration is less than 5 minutes in duration. Got a frog in my throat. Microburst could be either a standalone microburst there in the distance, or it could be embedded in a thunderstorm, larger thunderstorm activity, or it could be embedded in altostratus mammatus, where it's a fairly stable cloud, but you can get this inside it and you'll notice the radar is a red or yellow dot, and you'll see underneath it there's a shaft of rain coming out. So either in a lone, standing alone, or inside another thunderstorm, or part of altostratus mammatus. Alright, then you've got a macroburst. One guy very cleverly, I was discussing this and I said, what's the definition of a macroburst? So he sat in the back of the class, he said, it's bigger than a microburst. So I know, but what's the definition? Right. So definition of a macroburst is the diameter is more than 5 nautical miles and more than 5 minutes in duration. Just a bigger than a microburst. If you look at the square kilometer size inside each one of these and you compare the intensity to each other, you'll see the intensity is the same. But wait, they've got a brother, but she's a sister, got a brother. Her name is Virga. Now Virga, for the same square centimeter size, is a lot more aggressive. Right, let's look at Virga. So what happens with Virga? Virga rains, but the water doesn't reach the ground, it re-evaporates, goes back in the cloud, leaving very cold, very dense, very dry air, very heavy below it that falls quite quickly, a lot quicker than microburst and macroburst. Now microburst and macroburst have both got moisture-laden air, remembering that the molecule of water weighs less than a molecule of air. So as humidity goes up, the performance of the plane goes down because the air's density is less. In the winter, you'll notice your car performs better than the summer. Why? Because the air is colder. Especially if you've got a turbo car, then it even makes quite a bit of difference in temperature. So why does this happen? Now, your body's natural temperature regulating mechanism is sweat. So what happens? Your sweat glands emit water. The water touches your skin. The water then takes on some of your skin's temperature and it evaporates, taking that temperature with it. So it drops your body of temperature. So if you're standing dry like this and you have a fan blowing on you, you'll be okay. But if you wet yourself with a t-shirt, you put a fan on you, you're going to get cold real quick. Because there's a lot of molecules of water leaving your body, leaving your shirt, that's got your temperature. And your body then has to work extra hard to get the temperature back. Right? It's called latent heat of evaporation. Now, how does that happen with Virga? In the first place, when we increase our altitude, our temperature decreases. So what happens when we decrease altitude? The temperature increases. Bringing this air-water mixture to a point where the water evaporates, stealing the air's temperature, going back in the cloud, leaving cold, dry, dense, heavy air that will accelerate quite fast to the ground. Okay. But wait, that's not all. I sound like a very mock salesman. Over here, the QNH might be 995. Down here, the QNH might be 1025. So if I've got a balloon, at this altitude, the balloon's going to be that big. Over here, the balloon's going to be that big. The total calorie value of the energy inside that balloon is still the same, but it's occupying less space. So if I would take a square centimeter out of that balloon and a square centimeter out of this balloon, the square centimeter's temperature will be higher because more energy is concentrated in there due to it being compressed into a smaller area. But wait, that's not all. Very much salesman. Due to the compression, the friction forces will as well raise the temperature of the air, which further gets it to the point where the water evaporates, goes back in the cloud, leaving cold, dry, dense, heavy air behind that falls to the ground really quickly. But wait, that's still not all. In a day, you get shortwave radiation going into the earth, heating up the earth and heating up the rural areas, the buildings. At night, you get longwave radiation going out, but all that still causes a hotter area closer to the ground, relatively more than higher up in the air. Again, bringing this water-laden air up to the point where it starts to re-evaporate, and that re-evaporation then takes the temperature of the air, puts it back into the cloud, and the air stays behind, cold, dry, dense, and accelerates fast to the ground because it's very heavy. That is why Virga is a lot more worse than micro macroburst when it rains. So Virga, for the same physical size and dimensions and quantity of liquid, quantity of water and air, is a lot more violent. Okay. The last one is a PREP. Depends on if you're American or British. It's a PIREP or a PREP, pilot report.
Yes.
China 1, last aircraft reported to Windshear on short finals. What. Okay, can I wipe this out?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of memories I wish I can wipe out of my brain. Okay.
Have you ever experienced the Virga Windshear?
No, I haven't experienced Virga. I've stayed clear of any microburst and macroburst and Virga that I could see. Earlier years, I didn't get the opportunity. We already knew not to fly through it. I didn't know why until I got up in Windshear. And then I started doing investigation about Windshear, and I did a lot of reading and research and stuff, and then we came up with this stuff. But I've never been in Virga or something like that. But the premise is, what if there's Virga at the airfield? You know, the guys don't often think about that. That might be a threat to them. Wait, let it go away, and we'll discuss it as well now, what we're going to do about it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 plan. Land, hold, or divert. Ideally, we do not want to land in Windshear conditions. If I say to you the lights are off in this room, if I say to you, this room are full of bandidos, there's 10 of them inside here, and they all got guns, how inclined are you going to open this door? We're not going to open the door, we're going to leave the door. So, especially worse if we don't even know how many bandidos are in here and what weapons they carry. That's like Windshear. We don't know how bad it's going to be. What the hell are we doing inside Windshear? If we don't have to land in Windshear, stay away. Go somewhere else. We don't know if that might be the last time we're going to experience Windshear. So, 3 things. If you can hold, let's say there's a microburst to a macroburst, a bit of Virga, or a thunderstorm that's just busy passing. If you can hold, and especially if there was a warning for Windshear, if you can hold, go hold somewhere. Wait for it to dissipate. Once it's gone, come and approach. If it's not, it's going to go away. If it's going to stay there, then divert. If it's like a severe thunderstorm, then divert. Don't stay around there. I know the company's going to squeal, and you're going to have to follow the risk management model, what you're going to do with the clients, what are you about fuel, etc., etc. But rather not go into something that's dangerous than go into something that's dangerous like you. There's a site called Aviation Safety Network. You can go and look there and then search Windshear incidents and accidents on there. We're also going to do it in the next briefing. So it's Aviation Safety Network. If I'm not mistaken, if you go and search Windshear and aircraft, you'll find quite a lot of incidents and accidents there. The problem is these things don't happen to you every day. It happens every couple of years. But if it happens to you, you're not mentally prepared for it. It might be the last time it's going to happen. That's the problem. Right. So land, hold, and divert. If you have to land, in the first place, your 4 best friends with Windshear is this. Altitude, early recognition, indicated airspeed, and I'm going to refer to the Embraer 145. Instead of landing over flap 45, land flap 22. Okay, so your 4 friends is altitude, early recognition, indicated airspeed, and lower flap setting. The first one should be early recognition. The quicker you can recognize it, the earlier you recognize windshear, the better chance you have to get out of it. It will lead to higher altitude recognition of storm. That's the first thing. And oftentimes, we see it here in simulator. I've been doing only sim training. This is what I do. My whole life revolves around training. That's what I do. I get up in the morning to train. It rotates my beacon. If you tell me charter to Cape Town, I go, oh. If you tell me go for a sim session, I'm happy, I go. So, I joke with the guys here. I say, drill a hole on the side of the sim, throw 4 beers, 1 hamburger. 4 beers, 1 hamburger. Leave me inside, don't even open the door. Just let the other guys get in, but I'll stay inside there. So, altitude is going to be your first best thing. And that is going to be through early recognition. Now, we've had it hundreds of times. We've done the windshear briefings. We told the guys what to expect. We explained to them how it's going to happen. We get in the simulator. Through his bob, I can see all the signs taking place. They don't see it until the windshear warning comes up. Windshear. Windshear. Dude, it's been out there for like the last 5 seconds. You could have reacted a long time ago. But we don't look at it. Because every day we fly, especially in this machine, there are certain instruments we don't really look at. Every day we fly, everything goes okay. So we're used to that set of circumstances. So for us to see things outside that set of circumstances is not going to be easy. But that's what we need to look out for. If you hear, or if you think there's going to be windshear, you must look out for things that are related to windshear and plan for that. And we can do it a week in advance. You can do it on final approach. This one of mine happened on final approach. I'll talk to you about it just now. Early recognition gives you a higher altitude. Higher altitude gives you more space. The 5 most useless things, or the 4 most useless things in aviation is altitude above you, fuel in the browser, a runway behind you, and the freaking co-pilot forgot to take the aerostats telephone number. It's the 4 most useless things in aviation. Right. Indicated airspeed. The higher airspeed you have, the better chances you have. Now, you can go anything from 10 to 20, depending on your aircraft's limitations, on indicated airspeed. So if you final approach, add more speed. Also, go for reduced flap, because if you go for flap 45, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of drag to get out of there. If you go with the flap 22, you already have a higher speed, point 1. Point 2, you've got indicated airspeed, you can increase more on top of that. Point number 3, you've got a lot less drag. 4 friends in windshear. Ideally, we never ever want to take off in windshear unless someone is shooting us. There was that case with ADC or ADJ Airlines in Abuja, 2016, I think. They crashed on takeoff in known windshear. They took off known windshear, killed 100 people. If they knew anything about windshear, they wouldn't have taken off. They would have stayed on the ground, waited for it to dissipate, then took off. Cost 100 people's lives.
How long?
It was 2016, right?
Yeah.
Out of Abuja. 737-800 or 600. 800.
600.
600.
Yeah.
NG.
Yeah.
Completely unnecessary. And if you look at, we'll do it in the next briefing. If you can look at the aviation safety network, the bulk of the incidents, accidents, someone didn't do something correctly, or they didn't think for themselves. That's why they ended up in an accident situation. It's very rare that the airplane itself breaks in such a way that you cannot do anything about it. Very rare. It's people either being incorrectly trained, making incorrect decisions, not looking out for things that are threats for them, etc., 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 etc. All right. Can I wipe this? All right. Now, look out for. So, you are flying with the chief pilot of the company. He's got 4 bars to his shoulder. He's got 4 bars to his ear. He's got bars down his arm, down his leg, and across his foot. Okay, so he's the man. And he flies the boss's wife around, plays golf with the shareholders of the company. Even if he's flying with you, do not assume he knows anything about windshear, because I can tell you from personal experience, very few pilots know anything about windshear. Senior guys with thousands of hours, got no idea what windshear is about. They've just been lucky to get out of it until that one day. Right. So, there are 6 items that we can look at. Now, when you fly with someone else, doesn't matter who it is, remembering that the second we walk into a cockpit, there's no sex, there's no color, there's no race, there's no pleases, there's no thank yous, there's no manners, there's no etiquette. There's one thing only. 2 people flying the airplane safely from point A to point B with the passengers aside, using the SOP, emergency items, and QRH. That's it. There's nothing else. Any emotion involvement is going to be detrimental to the flight. Any. We are robots, we are machines. Unfortunately, we're human beings, so we do have feelings. But we're supposed to be machines. We're there to do a task like a Swiss watch. do this, do this, do this. That's it. Don't get offended if someone calls you at the altitude or anything like that. So do not assume, and if you do query the person next to you, it doesn't matter how little hours you have and how much hours they have got. If you query them and say, you must make sure, so Mr. Pilot assisting, what are you going to look for in this situation? Because we are expecting Windshear now, we already saw we can expect Windshear. What are you going to look for to call me? Windshear, go around, do not reconfigure. And if he goes, what are you? Oh, then you must know, there's no CRM. You're supposed to that. You are just ensuring that the other person is on the same page with you are, and you're supposed to do that. The other person takes offense, they don't understand CRM. Okay. First of all, indicated airspeed fluctuations of plus minus 15 knots. It can be either a fluctuation up, fluctuation down, or total fluctuation spanning 15 knots. Vertical speed, plus or minus 500 feet per minute. Either fluctuation up, fluctuation down, or a total fluctuation of 500 feet a minute. Now in Moroni, you're going to get that. It looks like that in Moroni. So it masks the effects of Windshear in Moroni. Number 3, a very much missed one. Okay. Localizer, 1 dot move, and glide slope, 1 dot move. Now the first example we'll look at is once again temperature inversion. Coming in with a 50 knot headwind into an area of a 10 knot headwind. Coming in on final approach, going from 50 knot wind to the 10 knot wind, you're losing 40 knots. Guess what's going to happen? The plane's going to fall out the sky first until it recovers the speed. So what's going to happen? The glide slope, for everything else staying the same, you'll drop it at the glide slope. In Moroni, I was out there, the wind was freaking howling that day. It's the weirdest thing ever. So there's Moroni Airport, the wind was blowing 27, gusting 35 on the day. I was doing line training.
What aircraft were you flying?
120, Embraer 120. Looks like the 145, you know the 120?
Yes.
Okay. So I came into this thing. Now I'm going to shift things around a little bit later just to make an example. But there was a fire right there by the tip of the runway, and the smoke was blowing inside the grass. The smoke didn't even come out the grass. You just saw the grass was like hazy, so the wind was freaking howling. So I wasn't too worried about this wind. But lo and behold, on final approach, we saw another fire, about 2-3 kilos behind the runway, and it was blowing in the opposite direction. Yeah. So we had to assume somewhere between these two there's a shear face. Somewhere the wind has to change direction. So let's just say, for argument's sake, this fire was here. The shear face is over there. So I'm coming in the ILS, I'm positioned for wind. I'm coming in. The second I pass through the shear face, this wind blowing in the opposite direction will boost me off the center line. For everything else staying the same. Rather do a go around for a suspected wind shear, and this turned out it was not wind shear. Then not do a go around, and it is wind shear. We want to be on this side of the TV, not that side.
You can always go around.
Always go around. The problem that we have is it's a cultural thing. And it's an airline, it's a pilot thing. Whenever we do a go around, the bosses say, what did you do wrong? Did you do the go around? Dude, put your wife and child with me in the airplane. Would you like me to do go arounds or continue flying? He's going to say, no, I can do go arounds. Shut up, leave me alone. Okay. They always do things that are diametrically opposed. The bean counters and safety. If bean counters are winning, the safety is losing. If safety is winning, the bean counters are losing. It is a business, but we're still going to be safe. Alright. Erratic thrust settings. Trying to stay on final approach in the glide slope. That it ties in with vertical speed and indicated airspeed fluctuations. First signs, get out of there. It's also a hint if you've got gusty conditions in the ground. I can't remember if we had it. If you have gusty conditions in the ground, you can expect wind shear, because gusty conditions goes as wind shear. The last two is abnormal pitch or speed on final approach. So let's just say, in your aeroplane, normal day, max roll up landing, let's say for argument's sake, with your landing flap, you've got 2 degrees pitch and you've got 68% power on. And today, you have to increase, and eventually you get to 4 degrees and 78% That's wind shear development. And which one is that? Negative wind shear. Because you've got to raise the nose and put more power. Yes. So I prefer that rather than the positive wind shear. But when this happens, what's the next thing that can happen? That wind can die down. So now you've already reduced your momentum because you were flying into this increasing headwind. You've reduced your momentum. Now if that wind goes to zero or changes, you will lose that speed you had. So if it's a 30 knot headwind that dies down, you lose 30 knots. Wind shear. Button start, power, attitude, get out of there. Ask questions later. So on this occasion, we're flying in a final approach. We saw the wind on the other side. I could still see properly without these things at that stage. And saw the wind, and we quickly on final approach briefed. Just, okay, I was pilot monitoring and or pilot assisting. I think I was pilot flying. Hydraulic failure. So we're sitting there, and we saw that. And we quickly briefed. Gavin was the captain. I said, okay, got to watch for this. I'm going to watch for this. So he didn't even have to ask me. So I'm going to watch for these things. I'll watch out for this, watch out. So we were prepared already for go around. We were mentally prepared for it. Our brains visited the situation so our bodies could follow. So lo and behold, as we went into the flare over here, it was like God grabbed the tail of the airplane, started shaking it like a dog shakes a rag. And it was wild. But we were ready to go around. So immediately put in thrust, got out of there.
I felt the wind shear on the 99 before. I remember when I was doing my pathway.
We're going to do it again. I don't know if he's going to do it tomorrow, but we'll do it again, the wind shear. When we come, I usually do the flyouts on the 99th. When you do the flyouts, we can do it in flights. And you must maybe just come sit with me anyway, because I fly alone when I do a flight. It's a 4-hour flight. Alright. So, coming in, this happened, and then we promptly did a go around, went on the downwind, stopped in the middle of the air, removed our swirl down planes, chucked it out the window, and we came around and came into the flight. Now we knew where the shear face was, which was over here somewhere. So we knew we had to be on the ground before the shear face took place. This ties in with, with if you're flying in a place like Maputo, we've got a cross runway. Preferably you want to use a runway that's a crosswind component runway rather than headwind tailwind component, if you can determine it, because crosswinds are not as detrimental to your flying as head tailwinds. Head tailwinds rob the speed off. Crosswinds will throw you around a little bit, but it wouldn't necessarily so much rob the airspeed off the wings. So you then like to change to use another runway to get in, so you can have crosswinds rather than headwind tailwind combinations. Alright. So ideally we don't want to get into wind shear. If we do have an idea that wind shear might be present, don't go there. Stay out. Together with that, I don't know what the ATR, what the ATR's machine is. The Embraer 145 has got wind shear avoidance guidance taking machinery that will help you get out of it. The 1900, you don't have it. The problem is, how do you know what pitch attitude to follow to get out of there? There's a couple of things. Point number one, whenever wind shear takes place and it deflects your wings, and it does this with you, you will lose some of your lift. So you must try to maintain wings level at all times. Point one. Point number two, we don't know what pitch attitude to use to get out of there. So the way to use would be respecting the stick, the stall warning. Okay, 2 to 3 seconds in the stall warning, 2 to 3 seconds out, 2 to 3 in, 2 to 3 out, 2 to 3 in, 2 to 3 out. Because you don't know what the proper approach climb angle is going to be. You might have a forward or aft C of G, that's going to change it. The weight of the aeroplane is going to change. So we can't say 12 degrees because it might be 14, it might be 9. And that 1 degree might be the one that's going to save you. So you pull it in, get the stall warning, push it out. Just go out the stall warning, 1, 2, back in the stall warning. 1, 2, back out the stall warning. 1, 2, back in. That's the only way you're going to get out of there if you've got no other guidance. Remembering that we do not reconfigure. Reason for that is if you hit the ground with the body of the aeroplane, structural damage is almost certain. But if you hit the wheels, at worst you can bend the frame. Unless you like really hit it hard. Bend the frame, but at least you'll survive. Insurance can pay that out, insurance can't pay lives. Alright, any questions? This all is part of mental preparation, which is going to be the next briefing we're going to do. I'm going to go fetch Theodora and then I think they are there. Mental preparation. We can see from this that we can prepare mentally for wind shear days ahead of time. What do pilots usually do? They wait till it happens to them. So we can prepare here. By the time we get here, we prepared ourselves, we are ready to do the job. There's two things. There's react and respond. This ties in with where's my mind. React and respond. Now, so you guys know what I look like. So today I come to school with a tennis ball. And I walk into the canteen or something and I throw a tennis ball at you and I get you and they go, I got you a tennis ball, maybe beer. You're gonna go, damn it. What are you gonna do when you go home? You're gonna go, okay, I've got a plan for tomorrow, but it's not gonna catch me again. When I get to the parking lot, I'm gonna look for his car or his bike, his parking spot. I've got a parking spot, so you know where it is. You walk in the front desk, you talk to Denise. Hi Denise, how are you? She says, oh fine, so how was your weekend? No, good, okay, cool. What's our temperature again? 36.2. So I see Nico's car is here. Is he here? Someone in the morning. Oh yes, he's in the canteen. Oh, he's in the canteen. Does he have a tennis ball with him? Oh, he does. Okay. We know now. Okay, so sign in. Okay, now when you walk up the stairs, if you see Nico, you just say duck, because you won't get out to the ball. When you're up the stairs, we go past the first briefing room, we check if he's inside, but we hide behind the door. You walk past that, we get to the window there by the canteen. We see Nico, we go, yeah, it's a beer. So what's the difference between the previous day and today? The previous day, you reacted to me throwing the ball at you. Most likely with a cup of coffee in your hand, I would of course spill the coffee. The next day, you're responding to it. So you've got a plan of action that if the symptoms fit the bill, you can put that plan of action into place. And that's what's going to make you operate safer because you've planned the whole thing. This is planned and thought out. Same with this. If you get into Windshear and you didn't expect it, you're most likely going to react to it. We make mistakes when we react because there's no thinking involved, or very little. We want to respond to the situations, that's why we do training. So when we have an engine failure, we should be expecting engine failure at all and any times. If we do have an engine failure, we have to respond to it. We don't react to the engine failure. Then we've got a much better chance of survival. Abi? Okay. Any questions? Not yet. They will come. Right. Stop this thing. Yeah.